Hi, I'm Richard Maraj, Senior Minister at Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center, and I want to thank you for visiting our website and for tuning in to today's message. If you feel inspired by today's talk, I really encourage you to make a donation by hitting that button below and making a contribution to this ministry. It'll allow us to continue these messages online and to do the great work we do here at Unity of Phoenix, which is to inspire people to live better lives. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for your support, and we hope to see you at a Sunday real soon.
Morning again, everyone. And a shout out to everybody who tunes in and watches us online. For the last 3 weeks, we've been talking about relationships. So how many people would agree that relationships can be joyful, fun, happy, wonderful, loving, enriching, fulfilling experiences? How many people agree with that? How many people would also agree that relationships can be hard, irritating, challenging, difficult, and even painful? How many people agree with that? So it reminds me of this guy who leaves work one Friday afternoon after just being paid, and instead of going home, decides to go party with his brother, his buddies, and all of his pals. Parties and spends his entire paycheck. And finally, he doesn't appear at his house until Sunday evening and is met by his less than happy wife. And he is hit with a barrage of nearly almost 2 hours of yelling and complaining, befitting his behavior. Eventually, his wife stopped yelling and complaining and just simply said these words: "How would you like it if you didn't see me for 2 or 3 days?" And he said, "That would be just fine with me." So Monday went by and he didn't see his wife. Tuesday and Wednesday came and went, and still he did not see his wife. But by Thursday, the swelling had gone down enough that he could almost see her through the corner of his eye. All right. Relationships. Even though it's a silly, crazy joke, every one of us can relate to that because we know relationships aren't easy. Relationships are difficult. They can be frustrating. They can be irritating. They can be painful experiences. And I'm not just talking about romantic relationships. I think all types of relationships are challenging. You know, whether it's a work relationship or with our children or our parents, our siblings, our neighbors, our bosses, whoever it is, relationships take work. They are not easy. And relationships also happen to be the key to having a happy and fulfilling life. You know, so we wonder, how do we create happier and healthier relationships? How do we create relationships that are more fulfilling and more joyful at any level in our lives? You know, so we are in the third and final week of our relationship series entitled Complaint-Free Relationships, written by Reverend Will Bowen. And every one of us wants to have a happier and fulfilling relationship. And when we're not satisfied and things aren't going well, we tend to turn to complaining, somehow thinking that complaining will get us what we want and complaining will bring more happiness and harmony. And in fact, when we complain, it actually makes things worse. The more we complain, the more upset and angry, the more negative, and the more hurt, and the further we actually get from the very thing that we are seeking, which is peace, happiness, and harmony. And by divine law, by spiritual law, as we think, that's what we attract, the law of cause and effect. So when we focus on what we don't want, what we don't like, what isn't working, we tend to attract more of what we don't like, what we don't want, and what isn't working. You know, complaining is very toxic to a relationship. There are studies that show that it actually damages and erodes the quality and the trust and the love and intimacy in a relationship. And sometimes when we want to improve a relationship, we always think, what are the positive things we can add? But do you know, just eliminating the complaining, the judging, the criticizing, the nagging and arguing, just eliminating that, suddenly there's peace. Suddenly there's more harmony. Suddenly there's more intimacy and connection. Just eliminating that negativity brings more of the love and harmony and connection that we all seek. Week 1, we looked at relating in relationships. In all relationships, it's what we relate to ourselves about the other person. Week 2, we talked about how do we get our needs met. That any kind of complaining is some unmet need that we are trying to express, and learning how to do that in a healthier way. Today, we're going to look at the primary relationship. You know, Will says that there are 2 reasons for relationships, and they are, number 1, they're for fun. Relationships are meant to be joyful, loving, nurturing, positive experiences of us supporting one another in fulfilling our dreams, creating wonderful things, traveling, doing all kinds of things to bring ourselves more happiness and joy. And then the second one is purpose of relationship is for growth. It is to help us do some healing, to help bring out qualities in us we didn't think we had, to help awaken and expand our awareness, to develop greater levels of insight and understanding and compassion, to increase our capacity to forgive and to let go of things, and to feel a greater connection to God, ourselves, others, and life. You know, just like with bodybuilding, the way you do bodybuilding and get stronger is you got to push your muscles. And they heal and they get stronger and you're able to do more. That's how things work. If you think of any successful person you can think of in life, I guarantee you they had to work through some stuff. They had to do some growth to bring out qualities in themselves when they thought they couldn't do it anymore. Any great relationship you've seen has gone through some tough stuff. There's stuff that needed to be learned, and some growth and understanding needed to happen. You know, for us, growth is a vital part of being alive, and growth is a vital part of success in any area of life. And the greatest laboratory for personal growth are relationships. Why? Because relationships bring up our stuff. People say and do things that just trigger stuff in us, and they trigger hurts and wounds. They trigger our insecurities and our fears, you know, and they're great paths for us to learn how to be more understanding, more compassionate, you know, how to be more vulnerable, how to experience more love and healing. And relationships are a lot more complex in some ways, and I know we make them more complex, but they are complex because in every relationship, there are actually 4 relationships going on. The first one is our relationship with the other person, and the stories we tell about them, the things we like about them, the things, the way they fill our needs, the things that appeal to us, and also some of the things that we make up and some of the things that we think are real. And then the second one is their relationship with us, the stuff that they make up, the stuff that they tell themselves about us, the stuff that they think about us, are attracted to us, or like the needs that we fulfill for them. But the interesting thing is, the relationship we have with another person is actually different than the relationship they have with us. Does that make sense? Because they're different needs, different perspectives. In the same relationship, there are 2 actually different relationships and perspectives going on. The third relationship is the relationship that we have with ourselves. The stories we tell about ourselves, the things that we like about us, the image we have about us, the things we don't like about us, the insecurities that we have. And then the final relationship is the relationship that they have with themselves, the story they tell about themselves, the images they have of themselves, the things they like about themselves, and the things that they don't like about themselves. And so of these 4 relationships, that there is really one relationship that affects all of them. And if we want to improve our relationship, the most important thing we need to do is to improve the relationship we have with ourselves. That we really need to look at how we treat ourselves. The first relationship that needs to be healed is the one with us. What do we need to heal in ourselves? What do we need to accept in ourselves? What do we need to forgive about ourselves? What do we need to have compassion? You know, and how can we be more honest with ourselves? How do we develop greater trust with ourselves? Because every single relationship in life ultimately is some reflection of our relationship with us. That if we're angry with ourselves, we will tend to show up in some way that we're angry with others. If we're gentle and loving with ourselves, we tend to be more gentle and loving with others. If we feel ourselves to be unworthy or lazy or unsuccessful or stupid, guess what? We will tend to attract people who will support what we believe about us. That if we are in life with people who don't think highly of us, there's a really good chance that we don't think highly of ourselves. That until we get a healthy relationship with ourselves, it's harder to build other healthy relationships. And so we need to look at how well do I treat myself? And what is the quality of the relationship I have with me? And how can I create a better relationship with myself? And the fact is, if we want to improve any of our relationships, the only way to do it is to actually improve our relationship and heal our relationship with ourselves. It is not optional. It is absolutely a prerequisite. Any attempt to try to improve a relationship without working on ourselves and improving us will be futile and short-lived. The only way we can have permanent and lasting improvement in relationships is to make sure that we do our inner work in healing our relationship with us, because it is our primary relationship. How many people know what a selfie is? Selfies? Anybody ever take selfies? Yeah. Now they got sticks that you can hold to take lots of selfies. I saw a little thing and it was a little poster about selfies. It says, "I swear I will not forget what you look like if you stop posting your selfie on Facebook every 2 hours." So we love selfies, and selfies are good. Some say it's narcissistic, some think it's fun to share yourself and what you're doing with people. And selfies are great, but I want to go a little deeper. If you want our relation to improve, it's about a deeper selfie we got to take, an examination of what's really going on inside of ourselves. How to heal ourselves, how to be more kind to ourselves, how to be more compassionate, how to be more generous and giving, how to be more supportive of ourselves. Life is about the selfie if you want it to get better, but it's about the deeper self that we need to do that work. And it will make a difference in the quality of all our relationships. It absolutely will. It cannot help but do it. Do you know every single relationship you've got right now, you have played a significant role in exactly where it is. And we have the power to change and transform that into something greater and better. Will tells a great story about they have 4 horses, and it's he and his wife and his daughter, and they invited a guest. And so they're walking on the trail, and it's the wife and then the daughter, then the guest, and he's pulling up the rear. And, they're all kind of chatting as they're walking in this line. And the guest keeps saying, "This horse keeps going to the right. This horse keeps going to the right." And Will said, "That means you must be taking the horse to the right." She says, "No, I'm not taking the horse to the right. The horse is just doing it by itself." And then he notices that when she talks, she turns her body to the right. And so the horse goes to the right. And so he told her, "Keep your body straight if that's where you want the horse to go. And when you try to talk to me, just turn your head and talk." Now, she was totally unaware that she was having the horse go in that direction. Sometimes we say things like, "Hey, this relationship has gone south. Things aren't working anymore." But the truth is, it's only a reflection of the signals or the things that we sometimes don't realize that we're doing. And so if we want our relationships to improve, guess what? We need to be a little more conscious. We need to be a little more aware of what we're saying, what we're doing, what we're not saying and not doing, because it will move in whatever direction we give in terms of our behavior. And so for our relationships, we have to be conscious, and we have to be more proactive rather than reactive in relationships. So here are the things we need to do to take charge and move our relationships in a better direction. The first one is to set an intention. Intention is a starting point of every dream. Everything that comes from the universe started with an intention. If you want to forgive, guess what? It starts with an intention. You want to be a top salesperson, it begins with an intention. You want to buy a birthday card for a friend, guess what? It begins with an intention. Intention is powerful stuff. In the very beginning, God said, "Let there be." There was an intention. For that light to come forth, an intention had to come first. And so in our relationships, my question is, think of a relationship that isn't working as well as you'd like. And my question, what is your intention for that relationship? And what is your intention for how you are going to show up in that relationship? Because the wonderful thing about intention is that even if there's discord and frustration, you can hold an intention for harmony and healing. Intentions actually lift us out of negativity and focus our creative power and energy and our light towards something greater. So what is your intention? See, we can just continue complaining, or we could look at right where we are, realize I have, it's like the horse, I can move things in a direction and think, what is my highest and best intention for the relationship, but also how I show up in the relationship. Maybe I could show up by being a better listener, by being more encouraging, by being more thoughtful, by being more generous. So number one, to move our relationships is, what is your intention? And the second one is, what healing work do you need to do? And so the question we need to ask ourselves is, how well do I treat myself? Do I tend to be critical of myself and put myself down and criticize and judge myself? And what do I need to heal with me? What is it that I need to let go? What shame, what feelings of unworthiness? And we need to really get a hold of some of the things, the not so pleasant things that we think and the images we have of ourselves that are unhealthy, and literally give it to God and say, God, help me heal this. Help me transform this. Let your love bring a little level of wholeness and worthiness back into my heart so I can show up for myself and others in more loving and kind ways. Anybody know what phototropism is? I don't either, so I'm just going to make this up and you won't know. But here's what it is that plants and organisms have the tendency, when they're exposed to the stimulus of light, to grow towards the light. So that what we need to do is those dark places that we don't want to look at, where we feel hurt and wounded and shamed and less than, we need to bring it to the light so that it can be transformed. It can be released, and it can be healed so we can feel more complete, so that we can feel more loved, we can feel more worthy, so we can show up for ourselves and others in more healthy ways. And a part of that, because the fact is, our relationship with us determines all the relationships. So we need to get ourselves more healthy, more whole, to be more lovable and caring towards ourselves. And one thing we got to realize, that anytime someone says something that irritates you or annoys you, it is triggering something deeper in us. Stop the resistance. Stop the temptation of thinking it's all about them, because it's really, what do I need to heal from this? What do I need to learn from this? What's really going on at a deeper level? What do I need to accept? What do I need to forgive? What do I need to learn? What do I need to see that I'm currently not seeing? That it really is about us, the selfie that we need to keep looking within. Here's an example. Even when it seems like it's the other person, there's really something for us to learn. So Will had a woman come into counseling, and she was really irritated by a coworker who was always late and tardy, and it put more work on her. So she got really irritated and said, she's so late, she's so irresponsible, I just can't stand this woman. She's just way too irresponsible. And with Will seeing her getting so triggered, he said, so where in your life might you be not being as responsible? And she calmly talked through the thing and said, no, I tend to be pretty responsible. In fact, I'm kind of hyper-responsible. And he said, well, anybody in your life ever been irresponsible? And she said, yeah, my father. My father couldn't keep a job. My father would squander the money. Sometimes spend it on silly things. We sometimes wouldn't have the rent to pay. There was always anxiety and tension. He didn't support my mom as well, and we always felt like we weren't good enough because he wouldn't really take care of us, and we felt powerless and weak. And so she realized that it wasn't about the woman doing it, and that was an issue that could be resolved. But it got so mad because something deeper in her got triggered, and it was what needed to be healed with her dad, of not feeling that she was loved enough or taken enough care, because she felt powerless in a situation when someone isn't being responsible. And the fact is, even though he was not alive anymore, she was able to do some forgiveness work in her, because forgiveness is always in us. And as she was able to release that, she not only had more peace with that person, more importantly, she had more peace in herself and could show up in a relationship in a greater way. Does this make sense, everyone? And so when something comes up, we need to make sure that we are looking at ourselves. And we've got to do that inner work. And it ain't fun, it isn't always pretty, but it requires us to be honest and go to those wounded places and bring them into the light so it can be healed and transformed by God. Somebody once said, everybody wants things to get better, but nobody wants to change. And the truth is, if we aren't willing to look into ourselves and do that inner work, we're not going to be able and change our story and to transform and do that healing. We're not going to be able to have deeper relationships. Second thing about ourselves we need to do is to affirm all the great things that we are and all the great things that we want to be. Anybody remember Zig Ziglar? Zig Ziglar had this affirmation thing that was about 4 paragraphs, and I had it on the back sides of 2 of those 5x8 cards, and it would say something like, I am a loving, caring person. I'm very generous. I see the good in all people in all situations. I am kind. I'm loving. I'm caring. I'm joyful. I'm optimistic. I'm a good finder. I mean, it went on and on and on. So what I'd recommend for us is write down 20 things of what you like about you that's good for relationships and what you would like to be. Maybe it's I'm a good listener. Maybe I'm good at encouraging and supporting and complimenting. Maybe I'm, kind and generous. Maybe I'm thoughtful with little gestures. But write down 20 things about making a commitment of how you want to show up in a relationship and what qualities would be meaningful for you and meaningful for the people around you that you could kick up. The ones that you've got now, but the ones that you would like to embody. Because the more we work on us and affirming and bring those out, guess what? Our relationships will change and transform. So the final thing I want to talk about is about engaging and relating to the people with a level of understanding. Dr. J.K. Albers said that there are 5 categories of complaining. The first one is behavioral. What the person does or doesn't do. It's like, you left your socks on the floor again. That's a behavioral one. Second one is personal characteristics. Either criticizing what they believe or something about their personality. You just talk too much. You can't stop talking, you talk too much. We complain about a personal characteristic. Next one is performance. They're not doing something right. Like I told you 1,000 times, you don't stack the dishwasher you put the glasses on the top, not on the bottom. That's a performance thing. Here's my favorite. The fourth one is that we complain about complaining. You are always nagging and griping at me every day, nag, nag, nag. So we complain about complaining. I don't know why I thought that was funny. But the fifth one is that about personal appearance. Your hair is a mess. Did you even bother to run a comb through it before you left the house this morning? I mean, we have ways of showing up. Here's the interesting thing. Of the complaining, do you know what the number 1 category was? Anybody? Okay, I'll tell you. 72%, it was about behavioral complaining. That was 5 times more than the next category, which is personal characteristics. Here's the interesting thing, though. When we complain, people who report about complaining about someone says it's behavioral, which it is, but they say they tend to be very neutral. The person receiving it tends to think it's very personal. Human beings, because of our woundedness, when we get criticized, whether it's a behavior aspect, tend to feel less than and feel attacked. So when we engage and interact with people, we need to engage in a level with understanding and compassion. The fact is, it is their stuff, but as a part of a relationship, we want to make sure we do our best to help them realize it's not personal. And so that is a very important thing. Is at the beginning of something in engaging to say, this isn't personal, but I just want our relationship to get better. So here's what I'd really love to see more of. And to do it, not saying, hey, I want you to stop doing this. I'd say, hey, I'd really appreciate it if you did that. So it's not, you're reassured it's not personal, and you tell them to focus on the positive thing that you'd like. Let me give an example. I had a friend, when he would come home, his wife would just be on him and, hey, was your day or his day or this? And hey, talk serious stuff. And he wasn't in the right place, and he would sometimes not be present or listen. She'd get mad that you're not present, you're not listening, and it would create you don't care, all kinds of stuff. After a while, he realized that wasn't working, and he said to her, he said, honey, he came home, I would leave. Well, I want to be present and I want to make a connection with you. But when I get home, my head is still full with work stuff. So would you be okay if I took about an hour and maybe had a shower and relaxed, maybe got a little snack, and then we can engage? Because I want to be present for you. But I just need a little time to unwind before. Does that make sense, everyone? Because instead of stirring it into something big, your intention is to be more loving and be positive in the relationship. And you're asking for something positive, and you're willing to show up in a better way for that person. It really makes a huge difference. The next thing is to understand that relationships take work. Sometimes we have this idea that I will meet my soulmate, that will be the perfect person, my life will be easy, and we will float on a cloud of bliss for the rest of our lives. And you meet that person, now you've met the one. He's the one, she's the one, they're perfect. 6 months later, you can't stand the way they chew their food. Even the way they breathe irritates you. And then we go to the thing of thinking, oh man, that's not my soulmate. I made a mistake. And the fact is, no, it could definitely be your soulmate. But even the best of best relationships, everything doesn't click. Relationships are for growth, to expand our capacity to love and to be supportive. Relationships are fun, but guess what? Things get triggered. It's just a part of the deal. Sometimes we go all the way to, a failure, or I'll never be good at a relationship. No, this is part of relationships. I don't care if it's 10 minutes old, 10 years old, or 50 years old. People are different and things come up. It's an evolutionary, ongoing process that we're all involved in. Growth never stops. It is a part of life, and it is a part of relationships. I've heard sometimes people say, hey, somebody got divorced after 30 years. Why? That isn't right. One, because each individual changing, all dynamics change. Do you know that the elderly, the ones that are reported to be as joyful and happy and more youthful than others, the key distinguishing feature is that they accept that life is about change. They accept that life has challenge, and you got to be flexible, and you got to be willing to grow, and you got to be willing to see things in a different light. It isn't static and dynamic. You don't get to a once and for all and put it in cruise control. And when we have an open-mindedness that life is evolutionary, it's unfolding in all ways, all the time, and we embrace that, we're more likely to show up to ourselves and our relationships in greater ways. Some relationships have highs and lows. It's in flux. There are 4 seasons in the year. Things change. It doesn't mean necessarily that they are bad. When things come up and it triggers us, we need to not turn to complaining, but instead go within, set an intention, do our inner healing work, and then engage with them with compassion and understanding. And yes, we'll make mistakes, we'll mess up, and then guess what we do? We set our intention again, do our inner healing work, and then engage with them with compassion and understanding. It will happen over and over again. It's a cycle of evolution. It's like shampooing. A wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. It's going to happen. And we may as well not fight it, but accept it that that's a part of relationship and the spiritual and emotional evolution of life. Relationships are the absolute key to a happy and fulfilling life. And they are for fun and they are for spiritual growth. And when you come down to it all, it comes down to only one thing, and that is love. It is love. Do you love yourself enough? Do you love the people in your life enough? Do you love life enough that you'd be willing to take a stand for love? That you'd be willing to set an intention to be an instrument and a vessel of love? Because if you're willing to do that, your relationships will change. Every Sunday we end with, let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Love is a nice idea, but that was wrong. And so, but I love your enthusiasm though, I really do. And the fact is, every single one of us, we might be 50% of a relationship, but we are 100% responsible for the quality of it. So my question is, how much love do you want to experience? How vulnerable are you willing to be? How deep inside yourself are you willing to go? And how much are you willing to engage with others in the most loving, positive intention with care and compassion? If you do, I guarantee you will improve all your relationships. Start with yourself. Let it begin with me. Work on your relationship with yourself because it truly is our primary relationship. God bless you all.